morning, Watershed. Happy Easter. I am coming to you this morning from the front steps of our auditorium. This auditorium typically is full on an Easter Sunday, slammed with so many of us who enjoy being together with each other. I know on many an Easter Sunday, it's one of the few times that we find ourselves maybe donning a tie or a dress that's a little bit more formal. Typically we're quite casual here. And following the service, invariably many of you will come out here with your friends or with your family or your children all dressed up and take a picture on the front step, just sort of marking the memory of today being Easter Sunday. And I have to say, I deeply miss you. I have maybe taken for granted the luxury of the hugs and the handshakes and the moments that we steal away in conversation in the hallway. And so it is good to be with you, albeit digitally this morning. This past week, my mother calls and says, "Hey, listen, I've got a couple meals I would like to bring by. Can I bring them and share them with you?" And we said, "Of course." And so she shows up and we do all the appropriate social distancing, and she gives us the meals, and we sit on the porch, a good distance apart, and have some good conversation. And then she proceeds to leave. And maybe the first time in 50 years, I'm 50 years old, and the first time in my entire life, the first time I've ever left the presence of my parents without at least a hug or a kiss. Of course, we said we love each other. And what I'm wondering in this season, for many of us, the loss is huge on so many different fronts. And so I want to be very sensitive not to underscore or simplify the loss that might be taking part in your life, in your family, in your home. But while there's a lot of variables that we're having to sort of pain through, I wonder if one of them these days is not the inability to just be close in the physicality of hugging and being together. That maybe I know I have taken that for granted. And so I look forward to whenever this clears, for us to be able to come together and to shake hands and hug necks, whatever that looks like, sort of the other side of this. This season reminds me of a passage that is very profound for me, and it always has been. It's a passage that Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 13, and we use it often here because the metaphors and the imagery are just so rich. But Paul says in 1 Corinthians, "When I was a child, I talked like one, I thought like one, I reasoned like one, but when I became a man, I put away the things of being a child. I put those behind me," he says. "For now we only see a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known." So we're sitting in this season right now. Some of us sequestered in our homes. Some of you are professional medical care workers, or you're working in grocery stores, or you're out doing the kinds of work that we literally need you to do in order to survive. And you're in this season of not sure exactly what's going to be happening in the months ahead, but it seems as though the glasses are sort of, the fog is clearing, right? That we're able to begin to see maybe a new reality. We don't know exactly what that reality is going to be the other side of this, but there does seem to be a new reality. To maybe emphasize the Easter story, right now for some, there's a literal and metaphoric death that is happening. There's loss happening. There's inability to love physically like we like to, typically to the people that we are closest to. There's the loss of work. There's loss of some health. Maybe some of you know people that have lost lives. And so right now we're experiencing metaphoric and literal death. But the other side of this, there'll be resurrection. And who will Watershed be as a resurrected community? Will we be more aware of what it means to love well, to care well, to be connected in a more beautiful and elegant way? And so as we move forward, I look forward to what resurrection looks like for us being together. Happy Easter. I love each of you deeply.
Hi, Jared Kelly here. I would normally be joining you from France, but right now we're on lockdown in the UK. It's a privilege though to join you at Watershed for your Easter service, to share a few poems and to speak blessings over you. May you know the full joy of resurrection life in this Easter season. This is called wonder. I wonder if the birds, in their swooping, swirling motions, have the vaguest of notions of what's going on below. Our arrested activity, our punctured productivity, the crisis of a culture forced to slow. Do the lilies, untrodden in the field, feel the same fears revealed in us as unprecedented? Is their hope dented by the earth's sudden silence? Or are they content to continue in the caress of their Creator, at peace with His provision, clothed in His care? What if, for them, the storm was us, and a word from above has just stilled it?
Distancing ain't fun, but it's right. Cabin fever in the Queen City, fever in the 704, fever here in Charlotte. Cabin fever, we're all staying indoors. Everybody's got the fever, that is something you all know. Fever isn't such a new thing. My cabin fever's starting to show. How's your stock of toilet paper? Is your ramen noodle game on point? Have you eaten all the food in your pantry? Is it just me, or all clothes feeling tight, or cabin fever? What's for dinner? The grocery stores all have empty shelves. Fever, meals are getting weirder. Cabin fever, making pasta from Elf. Fever, 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 fever. Quarantined in the Queen City, trying our best to flatten the curve. Shout out to all the teachers in Charlotte. Our own kids get on our very last nerve. Cabin fever, we're homeschooling. Fever, teachers aren't paid enough. Fever, we took you for granted. Cabin fever, miss that yellow bus. Starting to get a little bit loopy, not sure when I last brushed my hair. The boredom might be taking over. I'm tackling projects that I shouldn't have dared. Cabin fever in the Queen City, fever in the 704, fever here in Charlotte. Cabin fever, we're all staying indoors. Cabin fever, oh, we need your help, Lord. Watershed, we couldn't love you more. The church is people, we don't need walls and doors. Cabin fever, take care, staying indoors.
The Easter Story, adapted from This is the Mystery of Easter by Amelia Richardson and the Jesus Storybook Bible by Sally Lloyd Jones. Illustrations are by Lily J. Moore. May we all love this story enough to wrestle with it, play with it, and live with it. Amelia Richardson Dress.
There once was a man who loved big enough to change the world.
People knew he wasn't God, and God knew he wasn't him. Where he went, people were asking, "How do you wish?"
This man, whose name was Jesus, would answer,
Love.
Love God, love yourself, love everyone else.
Now there were some people who didn't like what Jesus was teaching.
They did not want to be told to love God, to love themselves, and love everyone else.
It is a very hard thing to love that big.
Instead of letting this thing on the side of the Jesus killed.
The hard part of the story.
When we tell this part of the story, we always say, "This is not the end of the story."
The hard part of the story is that Jesus' enemies did not want to learn to love, so they killed Jesus on a cross.
The cross reminds us of a very sad thing.
And Jesus' friends, the ones who knew that God was in him and he was in God, were very sad.
They remembered how they felt when Jesus was around.
That God was with them too.
Their hearts were broken.
His friend put him in a tube, which was like a cave, and they used a big stone for the door. Took some time and tried to fix their broken hearts. How could this happen?
It wasn't supposed to end like this.
Later, several of Jesus' friends went to the tomb where he was buried.
Sometimes when you're very sad because someone died, it can help to visit their grave.
So the friends walked quietly along the hilly path through the olive grove till they reached the tomb. When they got there, they discovered that
the huge stone that was blocking the entrance was out of the way. What?
They peered into the opening of the dark tomb. But wait! Jesus' body was gone! Inside, they saw a man dressed in a white robe who said to them, "Don't be scared. You said that you said good news. Jesus is alive again! Hallelujah!" His friends were so psyched they went fast as they ever had. They ran to tell the whole world Jesus was alive! Was God, making everything sad untrue?
Was God making even death come untrue?
This is the story that changes the cross from a sad thing to a good thing.
Reminds us of a sad thing, but now it also reminds us of a good, important thing.
Now it reminds us that no matter what happens, no matter how hard things are, we're with God and God is with us. This is what makes us brave enough to love God and love ourselves and love each other.
What does resurrection mean to me? To me, resurrection means the ability to be born again or start anew. It means that I can rise from wherever I am at any given moment to where I need to be. The story of Christ rising from the dead tells of the ultimate miracle. When I hear the story, it signifies that I have another chance. It signifies possibilities, and it encourages me to never give up. Christ died so that I could live my life to its fullest.
What does resurrection mean to me? I remember that from the time I began reading scripture, something that has always stayed with me is this characteristic of God and then in Jesus in person about Jesus making things new. In resurrection, we talk about new birth, new life. For me is what Jesus does in me, inside me, and to just to renew me, but also just to drive transformation of how I think and how I behave. So for me is letting go of those behaviors, those thoughts, the narrative that doesn't serve me anymore, the narrative that doesn't serve others around me anymore. And for me, it's just a time to get renewed and just make things new and let go of the old me, because then I have a chance to do that every day if I take a pause and think through what can Jesus make new through me again. So for me, it's all about transformation at a very personal, everyday, practical thing. What's not serving me anymore. And just, again, renewing the way I see myself and I see those around me.
The story is never over, even when it's over. So be very careful about the judgments you place on stories, because what may look to be dead may rise again in a whole new way that you did not see coming. And some things need to die. Some whole ways of viewing the world need to die. Some ways of arranging our communal life, our political life, our economic life together, some things may need to die. And you let them, because then you can have a resurrection. And that works at the meta, that works at the political communal. That's also true at the personal. We're endlessly, all of us, going through this process of some things are dying. It's okay, because some new things want to come to life. So it's this ancient story about a movement of people around this itinerant, subversive rabbi who they kept insisting there's a whole new order. There's the order of Caesar, which is peace through violence. And then there's this new way to order the world, to order ourselves, not around violence and greed and dominance, but around sacrificial love, around solidarity, around being present to each other, by caring for the most vulnerable in our midst. That's how you actually make a new world. So resurrections, it's a more potent, dangerous, extraordinary, world-changing idea than ever. Oh yeah, bring it on.
Mother told me, listen up close. There's a story they have composed. Look how the clapping arms are swaying high. Do you remember back on the day when the trees swayed in the same way? How the clouds swung low for kings and how your mother stayed by your side, watched the curtain tear in your eye. tried to get to you, but you came to me instead. With the dawn, the grave is gone. Oh, how you wish to be with me. I
everyone, my name is Austin Applefield. I am here today to do the What's Saving You Right Now. My family and I have been attending Watershed Church for about 3 years. I started off serving in Watershed Greenhouse, I don't know, maybe 2 summers ago as a sub, and quickly learned that that is not where I want to be. I have 3 little boys at home. Apologies if you can hear the TV in the other room. Since then, I didn't really dive in anywhere. And let me tell you, when that happens, it goes noticed. So about 6 months ago, Matt saw my husband and I in the hallway, and we started casually talking. And at the end of that conversation, I found myself as the new experience director, and my husband is now a proud member of the traffic team. So we call that term O'Neilled. So my husband and I were O'Neilled. Thank you, Andrea Miller, for coining that term. So I love it, and I am just so glad that I am a part of the community that way. So my husband and I are at home with our boys. Kellen is 5, and the twins just turned 3 last week. Here's a little picture of them. I know they're so cute. They're so cute. We have a lot of boys, and they're really close in age, about 2 years apart, and we just love them to death. We are exhausted, but we love them. So the past couple of weeks have been a little crazy. The first 2 weeks of the quarantine were not good. I was full of fear, full of anxiety. I didn't know what to do, and I was very fearful. But it wasn't fear about the pandemic. It was more fear, like a selfish fear, like how am I going to survive being at home with my 3 boys day in and day out? And so what's saving me is, in particular, this acceptance prayer, but acceptance. And acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation unacceptable to me. Hello, COVID. And I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it is supposed to be at this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. Unless I can accept life on life's terms, I cannot be happy. Here's the important part. I can concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world, hello COVID, but on what needs to be changed in me and in my attitude. So that prayer has really been saving me lately. But now I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's not saving me. I left a part out of that prayer that I'll read right now. It goes, until I could accept my alcoholism, I could not stay sober. So, shocker. This coming June, I will be 11 years sober. So it has been exactly 11 years since I've had a sip of alcohol or any substance that's changed me. And I'm very proud of myself. I'm very proud to say that out loud to you guys this morning. And it's still even kind of shocking. I mean, right? Because that picture you saw a little bit ago, that doesn't look like an alcoholic mom. That doesn't look like the head of a household who's alcoholic. But I am, and I'm proud of it. So let me tell you a little bit about how that happened. Around the time college graduation started, it was the 2008 recession, jobs were not being had. I got a phone call that my mom had breast cancer, and if you know me at all, you know she's my best friend, and that news rocked my world. So I quickly, couldn't find a job, obviously, 2008, so I got a crappy job in Charlotte, moved back home, helped support my family, and especially my mom. I literally opened my eyes one day and found myself drinking more and more, trying to hide drinking, trying to steal, trying to cheat, trying to lie. I was doing all of the things that I was raised to never do. I didn't know myself. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. It was very bad, and it was very uncharacteristic of me. So I was physically dependent and mentally obsessed on this substance. I couldn't go a day without thinking about it or without drinking. I would wake up in the morning with shaky hands, promising myself, Austin, do not drink today. And by the end of the day, damn it, Austin, okay, this is the last time. This is the last time, day in and day out for about a year. Finally, a sweet angel named Sylvia came, and a lot of women who went before me pulled me up and put me back together. So for an entire year, I worked tirelessly tirelessly to stay sober. I did exactly what they said day in and day out. And I was a perfect sober student. I had also struggled with an eating disorder for many, many years. I struggled with perfectionism and OCD and trying to be this most perfect person that society wanted me to be. And sobriety helped all of that. So after that first year of sobriety, I just kind of sped through the next 9 years like a sober badass. I met my husband, we moved to Atlanta, we got married, we moved back to Charlotte, we bought a house, I had my son, then we had twins, which rocked our world, and that is kind of the story of my sobriety. It is hard work. It is really, really, really hard work. You know, we can scroll through social media and I see the moms at the end of the day having a glass of wine, saying that they've been waiting for this moment all day long. I don't have that luxury. When tough things happen, and they do, I've had to go through the cancer term in my immediate family again. Tough things happen, and today I go straight through them like a bulldozer. I go straight through them. And while sometimes it would feel nice to have a drink on the back patio, I'm more proud of the real raw version that I get to show to the world. And my kids, my boys, you know, by the grace of God, like, they will never see me drink, and that is a blessing. One of my favorite authors, Glennon Doyle, sort of describes this transformation perfectly. She says, you can be shattered and then you can put yourself back together piece by piece. But what can happen over time is this. You wake up one day and realize that you have put yourself back together differently, that you are whole, finally, and strong. But you are now a different shape, a different size. This sort of change, the change that occurs when you sit inside your own pain, it's revolutionary. When you let yourself die, there is suddenly one day new life. You are different and you are new. And no matter how hard you try, you simply cannot fit into that old life anymore. So today, 11 years later, I am grateful for the hard work that it's taken to get me where I am now. So with that being said, with you guys listening to my story, this coming Tuesday, on April 14th, that angel Sylvia is still one of the most important people in my life, and she's going to be joining me on a Zoom call, a Zoom conference for all of you. So if anything, what I said rang a bell for you, rang true for you, you don't have to do this alone. So please follow Watershed's social media. They'll be posting the link on how to get to the Zoom conference. Please come anonymously. Please come open. Please just come. So now we'd like to take a moment and think about what's saving you right now. What's keeping you afloat during these times where the waters are rough?
Resurrection means to me hope and the desire for something new. Love in its most fundamental form, sacrifice, and rising up.
Hi there, how's it going? I hope you're doing okay in this crazy and difficult time that we're all sharing. I'm excited about speaking to you in a few weeks, but I was just asked to reflect a little bit on what resurrection means to me as we are in the Easter period. Of course, that's a very difficult question. It's huge. You know, a lot of the Christian tradition is about trying to explore the meaning of things like the incarnation, the crucifixion, and the resurrection, and what they mean. But maybe we can dissect a little bit of that in a few weeks. But for now, I'd just like to tell you a story, if that's okay. It's a story from Northern Ireland, where I'm from, and it was told during the Troubles. And one thing to know about the Troubles was that the IRA used to plant incendiary devices in buildings, and then they would phone up the police and they would say, you've got 5 minutes to get everybody out of the building, right? And so the warning would be phoned through and everybody would have to evacuate. So anyway, this story was going around during the Troubles that this guy, Seamus, who was part of the IRA, has a heart attack, dies, and he goes to heaven. And he's waiting at the pearly gates, and he's waiting there for about half an hour, and eventually St. Peter comes out with a big dusty book under his arm, sets it down on a table, opens it up, starts looking through it. And eventually he looks up at Seamus and says, listen, mate, he says, you were in the IRA. He says, your name's not in the book. You can't get in. And Seamus looks at St. Peter and says, no. He says, you misunderstand. He says, I'm not trying to get in. You got 5 minutes to get out. Now, the thing I love about this little story is that I actually think it captures the very heart of the Christian message, is that we so want to escape the sufferings of the world and we want to get into heaven, and this is what we're trying to aim to do. But the notion of the incarnation and the notion of the resurrection is the idea that actually we're trying to get God out of heaven and into the earth, that we want to see and find God in the grit and grime of the world, not in some purified other realm. And the reason why this is connected to the resurrection for me is because in the post-resurrection understanding of God, God is no longer approached as an object that you love, but rather as the reality you experience in the act of love itself. And so what you find in what's called the epoch of the Holy Ghost is the idea of the community who are the body of God in the world. And that as we love one another, we encounter this reality of God. So you don't directly love God, rather you indirectly encounter God through the love of the world. So anyway, maybe explore that a little bit more in a few weeks. But for now, stay safe and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Hey everybody. I've been tasked to answer the question of what does resurrection mean to me? Growing up, I think, there was the literal sense that resurrection for me was the dead coming back to life, and even coming back to life in physical form. And as I've deconstructed a lot of the beliefs that I grew up with, I feel like that definition of resurrection has begun to expand. And so when I think about resurrection in the story of Jesus, the word that comes to mind is restoration. And thinking about that in a context of how I experience God as a queer black male, I also think about reparation and restoring the thing that was broken, the thing in life that we damaged or caused harm to, that we restore. I also think about philosophies like the end of suffering, this rebirth, awakening anew inside, a new spirit, a new fortification, and how this is a process that we go through continually through life, this death and this rebirth process. So am I hard-souled on all that? No, but I'm open, and I think I'm experiencing and living resurrection every day as old things die within me and new things arise. So, be well.
This is called Lockdown. Buttercups are blooming across a lawn that no one is mowing. Daisies unexpectedly unchained. In the hedgerows, brambles and weeds are overgrowing the limits we no longer maintain. The river, where it ripples over rocks, is free to sing, rid of traffic now, the loudest show in town. Woodland pathways pulse with the promise of spring. There is a life here that will not let us lock it down.
What does the resurrection mean to me? I'd say for me, the resurrection means hope. I was raised in a tradition where resurrection was all about fire insurance and an escape plan, and that, ultimately things in this world, in this life, didn't matter. And through my own journey, resurrection has come to mean hope, but not just for the future, but hope for now. And it's been a driving force behind so much of what I do and the causes that I throw myself into, but just this world, my life, the life of others, the things that are wrong in this world, that they matter. And though I have hope in that everything will be made new and better than ever, that doesn't mean I can just sit and wait for it to happen. That in a lot of ways, resurrection, and this is kind of a change from saying it's hope, but resurrection for me is an invitation.
Hey Watershed, Sean Bowers Buxton here. I am a member of the lead team and I'm also a teaching pastor. So I was asked, what do I think of resurrection and what does it mean to me? And in light of sort of the global context that we are in today, I really feel that this message is a certain type of rebirth. I think of the mythology of the phoenix rising from its own ashes. I think of the hero's journey and the sort of road of trials that the hero endures to come out a new person at the end. And I really think that we're collectively having this moment. Right now, I think that the resurrection means letting certain things die that might need to. So in my personal life, maybe it's the glorification of busy, and maybe it's the maddening rush to get from one place to the next. Now that I am sheltering in place, I'm taking time to notice things in ways that I haven't before. One example of this is I'm matching bird songs to the birds that are in my yard. I've always heard them, but I've never taken a moment to just stop and listen and try to memorize the call and match it to the right bird. And I'm doing that now because I have time. And so for me, resurrection means stopping, pausing, and taking stock of my life and truly measuring its blessings. And I hope that I'm able to continue to do that after we come out of this COVID-19 mess and we can resume activities. I hope that I hold on to the lessons of savoring time and of savoring relationships and of getting to know myself a little bit more intimately in the quiet and solitude that I have found myself in. So that's right now what resurrection means to me. Thanks.
This year in particular, when I think about resurrection, the first word that comes to mind is possibility. Like possibility. Because there was a moment when Jesus hung on the cross and breathed his last. And that was supposed to be the end of the story. There was nothing else except to take down his body and wrap it up and put it in a tomb. That was supposed to be it. But then there's this miraculous thing that happens called resurrection, this impossible thing where Jesus is risen. That is a story that I need desperately right now. That this is awful. That this needs to be grieved. That we have missed birthday parties. We are saying goodbye to loved ones. My parents have not been able to hug their grandchild in longer than they've ever had to go without, right? Like there are people dealing with disappointments. There are people who can't visit their sick loved ones. Like there is so much grief. There is extraordinarily high unemployment. Like the world feels like it's falling apart. Like this could be the end. But we have a story in which we can grieve that feeling that this is all over and still believe in the possibility that something extraordinary could happen. And that would be my encouragement to Watershed. That if we believe something extraordinary is still possible, then maybe there is still time to love. And maybe there is still time to practice justice. And maybe there is still time to say, I love you. And maybe there is still time to defend the most vulnerable. Because maybe, just maybe, even in the midst of heart-wrenching grief, something new is possible.
Good morning, Watershed. My name is Taryn, and I'm on staff at Watershed, and I'm also one of the co-founders. And when we began Watershed about 15 years ago or so, we had no idea that one day we would be trying to film our services in little bits and pieces all over the city from our homes. We don't really feel equipped for this, if we're honest. And if you're wondering, do I hoard plants? Yes, I do. Let's not talk about that this morning, though. Let's talk about resurrection. And last week, while I was listening to Mike McHargue share on our live virtual service, and he shared what we just replayed for you, that his take on resurrection is that it's never too late. It just hit me in the heart. And I think it was maybe Monday night, Tuesday, I can't remember, in this week, Austin and I were talking about, well, what are we going to try to do virtually for the music this week? And I said, listen, that Mike McHargue phrase, it's just sticking with me. And I just sat at the piano and the song like wrote itself. It was just an incredible moment in the spirit, for sure. And I said, it just kind of came together, and I want to share it with you. I can't even get together with you in person to practice, but I feel like, Austin, you are the voice to sing this, because Austin has my favorite voice in the whole world. I said, I'll back you up on it. I'll do what I can here. And he was gracious enough to wing it like only he can. And so we want to share it with you right now. And I want you to know that if you're in a place, which I'm sure that you are, where you feel like you are completely out of your wheelhouse, where everything about right now, working from home or not working from home and trying to juggle all the nuances of whatever's going on with this quarantine, we just want to remind you that we love you so much. You are on our hearts and on our minds and in our prayers constantly. And we hope that this semi-spontaneous song will be something that can lift your spirits today.
It's not just what you did, it's what you're doing. Not just how you move, it's how you're moving. What you gave, it's what you're giving. Not just after life, it's how you live. In and through us now. It's never too late, you're never too far gone for grace. Find you where you are. Resurrection, it's never too late. Hope can be buried or contained. You raise us from the grave. Resurrection's not just that one stone, it's stones still rolling. Shedding your grave clothes, it's our unfolding. Oh, not just one death to life, oh, it's resurrecting. Oh, all that we've lost, never too late. You're never too far gone for grace to find you where you are. Resurrection, it's never too late. Hope can't be buried or contained. You raise us from the grave. Resurrection.
It's never too late. That's what resurrection means to me. It's never too late. I write about this a little in Finding God in the Waves, but I think that resurrection is the language of the cosmos. It's the signature of creation. Planets are resurrected stardust. Organisms are resurrected planetary matter. Everything that lives because something lived before it and lended to a miraculous process matter and energy in a way that allows us to exist moment by moment. At some point, the collection of patterns that is me will stop, but then everything that made me will continue to make Earth and life for as long as Earth and life exist. And even beyond that, we understand there's a great cosmic cycle in which nothing is ever wasted. So on Easter, I love to contemplate this notion that there was once a person so divine that death itself did not have a permanent effect on that person. Now we can get really caught up on medical science and the forensics of an empty tomb and whether that actually happened, and I think that's a fine discussion for people to have if they are interested in having it. I've had it to the point that I'm not interested in that line of inquiry anymore. And instead, on Easter, I celebrate the idea that God is love, and that with love, there's no such thing as too late.
You say it's never too late. You say it's never too late. You say it's never too late. You say it's never too late. You raise us, you raise us, you raise us from our graves. You raise us, you raise us, you raise us from our graves. You raise us, you raise us, you raise us from our graves. You raise us, you raise us, you raise us from our graves. You raise us, you raise us, you raise us from our graves. You raise us, you raise us, you raise us from our graves. You raise us, you raise us, you raise us from our graves. You raise us, you raise us, you raise us from our graves. It's never too late, you're never too far gone for grace to find you where you are. It's resurrection, it's never too late. Hope can't be buried or contained. You raise us from our grave. Resurrection. 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 You say it's never too late. You raise us, you raise us, you raise
This is glint. The blessings of the highest sky be yours, in fiercest storm, in deepest dark. The flare and flicker of the goodness of God highlight your horizon. His burnished breadcrumb trail of beauty shine to show you your way home. The sighs of the Spirit soar in you, a rousing shout, a rising song, the sweet delight of reassuring light. To flood and fill your soul, may peace be yours.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us this morning for this very special Easter Sunday. I hope this morning was something that allowed your soul to be fueled, your heart to be stirred and more full and more alive. As we close this morning, I just want to say thank you to our folks who are participating in our blocks, our leaders who are leading in those areas. The commitment, your creativity, your love for one another to help Watershed continue to stay grounded in relationship, grounded in flesh and blood is literally, during this season, it's the backbone of this community. It's what's allowing us to remain intact and to remain mobilized, not just for each other, but for some of the needs of the city. And so thank you for creating that sort of space of belonging, growth, and love of neighbor. And then finally, I know that this morning there's no way for us to see each other face to face. I know many of you, because you are connected to a block or you're a part of a team here at Watershed, that this means that you are sort of in the world of someone else, or someone else might be in your world. But whether you're in blocks or not, we would still like to know how things are going for you, how you're faring. And so an email or a message letting us know kind of how things are going for you in your life, or ways that we could be present to you during this time. A message or an email would be totally welcome from our community or from our staff. And so we'd love to hear from you in that regard. And so this morning, Watershed, in a time when uncertainty and instability and the dramatic peaks and valleys of our emotions are the waters in which we swim. May our stress and may our anxiety over what might be or what could be, may that be diluted by the truth of what is real in this red hot second of our lives, and that we are here, we are with each other, that we are fully seen and fully embraced by a particular sort of God, a God who seemingly insists on second chances, a God who instills hope and beauty through the lives of real people and real places and real times and real situations. And may the absence of those people in our life, their absence physically, may this teach us something. May it teach us to live with great anticipation towards who we are together, but who we're going to be when we come back together, the day that we're no longer apart from those that we love so much. And may our hearts explode with courage. May we begin to accept the risks and the invitations, the real invitations to respond in our city and in our neighborhoods, in our world where there is great need. May we swim upstream against the current of self-survival in a way that champions the survival and the health and the sustainability of more than just ourselves, but for the world as a whole. May we grieve well. May we suffer well. But may we also refuse to divorce ourselves from joy, divorce ourselves from beauty, or divorce ourselves from hope or a deep source of love that resurrection makes possible in every one of our lives and in everyone in this world. With love and great peace and great hope. Watershed community, thank you for being here this morning, and happy Easter.